instance in which I would be hoping to be finding those mavericks out there that position.
Ms. Hobbs, you have 1 minute to respond to any points that Mr. Utu raised.
Yes, so much like
On to our second question, Mr. Utu, how do you plan to advocate for students on campus in the role of student trustee?
As I stated prior, these campaigns have given us the opportunity to reach out to a lot of students that we may not have known prior, but in the instance of allowing us, could you restate the question? Sorry about that.
No, so we're kind of looking for how, in your position as student trustee, speaking with the Board of Trustees, how do you plan to advocate for the normal student on this campus?
Yeah, of course. Going forward, it's not necessarily what I have to say or anything like that, it's what the students have to say. So getting to know the students and being able to hear what they have to say and really advocating for what their goals are and everything that they want to represent to the college and everything like that is what my position would be. Presenting forward the ideas of the students is what the trustee's position is, and that's what I hope to bring with the candidacy.
Ms. Hobbs, you have 3 minutes to answer the question, how do you plan to advocate for students on campus in the role of student trustee, as well as respond to any points that Mr. Utu raised?
So as a social work major here at CMU, basically all I learn about is advocating for others and making sure that their ideas or opinions or concerns are heard. So as the student trustee, I really want to make sure that I know my constituents and I know them well. So I've been going to a bunch of club meetings, really getting to know what's going on their end, how to better represent them, what they feel is important, because ultimately I'm not just representing myself or the majority, I'm representing each and every individual. And I want to make sure that I can do that to the best of my ability. So I'm currently the Social and Behavioral Science Senator in ASG now, where I advocate for a couple different clubs, and that has given me a lot of experience really just making sure that I know how to advocate, I know how to make these clubs and individuals successful in their endeavors, and I really get to hear and listen to their concerns or opinions. And to me that's really important because this position itself is really for the people, so I should be with the people to make sure that I know how to advocate for them correctly. Once again, I love diversity. I love being acculturated. I think that's an important part of life, and I think that makes you more well-rounded. So being able to sit down with people and understand what's going on with them, why they want some things implemented, or their opinions, I think is something that I really want to be able to take back to the Board of Trustees and back to our administration, because I want them to feel comfortable at CMU. So advocating is something that I love. I love being around people, and I really love making sure that they feel comfortable in their endeavors. So that is kind of how I feel about that.
Mr. Utu, you have 1 minute to respond to any points Ms. Hobbs raised.
As Amara was talking about, advocating for the students is one of the most important aspects so that we can represent as trustees. I've had the opportunity to be a part of the Student Conduct Board, which I've had the opportunity to really represent and advocate for the students a lot of time in their darkest hours. It's a position that I've truly learned a lot from, and being able to advocate for those students and be able to represent those and be able to be there for the students that really need it is a skill that I think I'd be able to bring to the table, and is something that I'd really like to be able to see in any of the student trustees that we all have coming forward, and that'll be it.
Beginning with you, Ms. Hobbs, our final question for our trustee candidates. How will you approach working with a group such as the Board of Trustees?
Yes, so working with the Board of Trustees, I really want them to know that I'm a strong candidate in general because I love people, and I think when I walk into the room I want to make sure that people know that I'm personable, I feel comfortable talking around others, and ultimately that I care about everything that's going on. I'm pretty informed with social policies because I'm a social work major, so I know what's going on within the federal level as well as state and local levels. I know a couple of the Board of Trustees, which I think is a great opportunity as well because I've got to sit down and talk to them and see what they have been looking for and what they see and deem as important as a student trustee. So I feel like I have a lot of background knowledge. Being in ASG, I see how things are run. I know how our student government works, and I know what is expected and what is expected of us from the students. So I think that's very important with bringing information back and forth because ultimately, as a student trustee, you are the student's voice. So the responsibilities that a student trustee has, I feel as though I could carry all of those out flawlessly with just going to the ASG meetings, which I already do and love, going to FAC meetings, also heading conference committees if that is abrupt with certain things within ASG. But ultimately with being with the Board of Trustees, I'm very professional. Professionalism is something that I have learned over the past couple years with my experience with being the student event coordinator for the University Center, as well as working in career services and being a peer academic coach. So I'm very well rounded with talking to people, and I think that these individuals have a great presence within CMU and they're very important. So I would just be delighted to get to understand their knowledge and be able to represent the students with them.
Mr. Utu, you have 3 minutes to answer the question, how will you approach working with a group such as the Board of Trustees, as well as respond to any points Ms. Hobbs raised?
Working with the Board of Trustees is a great opportunity to really learn. The Board of Trustees offer a lot of information that we might not know prior to going in, and a lot of information that we can take out of it going into the future. Working with the group, I'd hope to be able to represent my constituents that I've been a part of. I've been a part of ASG for 2 years. I've been in the FAC. I worked as a peer mentor for Albers Hall. I've been able to really meet with students, understand what's going around on campus, and understand what the students truly want. Being a part of ASG, I think, was another key part that Mara was talking about, but by being a part of that, I've definitely learned a lot of skills and abilities that I didn't have coming in as a freshman, and I think it's something that being able to pass on into the students coming forward and being able to advocate for those students while they're going through that transition of trying to understand what's going on campus and all the available things that we offer.
Ms. Hobbs, you have 1 minute to respond to any points Mr. Utu raised.
Yes. So lastly, I believe that working with the Board of Trustees is a great opportunity for networking, especially in learning certain things, what happens where, and really ultimately just understanding what happens on the administrative side for CMU, because although we get to see everything in ASG, I think that being the student trustee is a whole nother level because you ultimately get to see what's going on, how everything is working. You get to impact the students, and you also get to be a part of that impact. I know that our current student trustee now served with getting everything rolling with the hotel on campus, and so I think that's something to be really proud of, and I would want to be a part of one of those new changes that can be brought to CMU. So I'm excited, and I think that this would be a great opportunity for either of us.
I'd like to thank our candidates for the office of student trustee. After the break, we will be speaking with candidates for the office of vice president.
Join us on April 10th for our second annual Day of Giving.
Thanks to our generous donors, we exceeded last year's goal with 92 gifts and raised over $17,000.
Join us in celebrating CMU's 93rd birthday as we aim for another record-breaking year.
Oh, dude, did you hear about the Day of Giving campaign? The campaign that receives the most donors receives a $5,000 bonus towards their project.
$5,000? We need to find a campaign to support. Yeah.
There are 15 unique campaigns eager to receive your gift. To give, just go to supportingcmu.com/celebrate93. Which one do you want to receive the bonus?
We encourage everyone to give to the campaigns that mean the most to you. Let's see what we can accomplish when we give together on CMU's 93rd birthday.
Happy birthday, CMU.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday! So join the fun on April 10th, and remember, your gift could help your favorite campaign win $5,000. Happy birthday, CMU.
Happy birthday to you!
Bravo Pizza is more than just pizza. We offer gyros, garlic knots, calzones, Mediterranean plates, Philly cheesesteaks, wings, salad, and more. Bravo Pizza, a real New York slice of taste bud heaven.
What happens to a pop culture narrative pushed past the fall of civilization? Experience the dark comedy brilliance of Mr. Burns, a post-electric play, at CMU Theater, April 6th through the 14th.
Greek pronunciation, gyros. American pronunciation, gyros. However you say it, they're made fresh for you daily at Bravo Pizza, New York taste, home of the monster slice.
The Office of Student Body Vice President includes more than acting as second in command. They are responsible for presiding over the Student Senate, acting as liaison for the President, and overseeing student fee-funded organizations, as well as representing the student body as a whole. With that in mind, please welcome on stage our two candidates for the Office of Vice President of the Student Body, Donovan Harwell and Jeff Vella. Mr. Harwell, I'll begin with you. What three substantial goals do you hope to accomplish as Vice President?
So first, I think we really wanted to focus on celebrating the So just increasing the transparency with that and showing them, showing students what's been going on campus, and I guess empowering students to celebrate that. Our second goal is to create more ASG awareness. So right now, as Nicole and I have been campaigning, we've been learning from a lot of students that they don't exactly understand what ASG is about. And so a large part of that would be increasing the social media campaign and just showing, I guess, the more personal side of ASG. And so one thing that we thought about is, if elected, we would implement like a senator meet and greet, or show a little bio. We've been doing this with clubs and organizations right now, but just letting them know who is the senator, who are the senators, giving them a better background on who they are, and just showing them that they're people. And then our last goal, I guess, would be sort of threefold. It goes along with our campaign slogan, is that we want to start by listening to the students. So we know that nothing is going to be, I guess, effective if it's not backed by the students. We don't want to just be in here thinking that we know best. We want to listen to the voice of the students, the voice of the senators, the voice of the executives who have come before us. And then with that knowledge that we've learned, we just want to work on, again, empowering that. So showing students that they can, we celebrate achievement and knowledge, and we want that to be done for everyone. And then, as our slogan, it says, connecting Colorado Mesa University. So through that listening and through that empowerment, we ultimately just want to create a more connected Colorado Mesa University and just get people, to meet each other. Everyone in a club, an organization, and any type of group on campus knows that meeting these mentors and fellow students helps with the process.
Mr. Harwell, I'm sorry I have to cut you off.
No worries, thank you.
Mr. Vella, you have 3 minutes to answer the question, what three substantial goals do you hope to accomplish as Vice President, as well as respond to any points Mr. Harwell raised?
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Williams. I believe as Vice President, you play a really big role on the administration and kind of the organization of ASG in its entirety. As a Vice President, you have to be able to organize with the executive branch and be on the same page. Largely what mine and Mr. Flores' vision for this next year is to really connect with the department heads and really figure out what issues the students are facing, on an education level. This past year, we restructured our Constitution, and with that restructuring, we changed our Senate seats that represent department heads. We want to push senators to meet and connect with department heads, and that way we hope we can hear the real issues that students are facing when it comes to their education, and we could bring those issues straight to John Marshall, President Tim Foster, and even the Faculty Senate. By using these resources and allocations, we believe that we can be a lot more effective in being transparent. And that goes into my next point of just being transparent as a body. A lot of students don't know what ASG is, and that's the matter of the fact of it. How do we get students to recognize what ASG is? I think it falls back on transparency. Transparency with the media organizations and transparency with the students. This next year is a biannual year, which will allocate approximately $1.2 million back to organizations on campus. During that process, experience is going to play a huge role into this. I myself have sat in FAC this past year, which is the body that will decide this. For transparency in the biannual, I want students to know how much these different organizations are requesting to be funded from their student fees. By publishing that information and by pushing that out to the students, it gives the students a voice and really allows the students to further know where the student fees are coming from and how we are spending their student fees. If they don't like where their student fees are going, then maybe it's time for the body to vote in a different way of how those student fees are being spent. Lastly, with ASG, this past year we've had a big push to connect with clubs and different organizations on campus. Me and Mr. Flores wants to continue to push that. This past year, in our bylaws, we have a town hall that is mandated by each senator. This last year, we haven't been following that very closely, but I offered a change and submitted to our internal committee that we will hopefully vote on this Wednesday, saying that senators have to meet with their allocated clubs at least once a semester and meet with those club heads and really push for them and voice their club and constituents' voices.
Mr. Harwell, you have 1 minute to respond to any points Mr. Vola raised.
I just want to touch again about the celebrating campus culture. As Nicole and I have been doing these campaign events, we've been asking students what they love about CMU and what they would like to see changed. And in general, we've gotten a great response. They love the beautiful campus, they love the people, they love the faculty. And a big focus of ours is just to celebrate that and show every student in the future who comes into CMU that this is what we're about and this is what we do.
Mr. Vela, I will begin with you for the second question. When conflict arises, how do you and your running mate, Mr. Bo Flores, resolve it?
I think when it comes to conflict, in terms of conflict, it's something that ASG almost sees every year. If you look back at the Dillinger administration, Mr. Dillinger was in, I would say, kind of more of a grave situation where impeachment was being threatened with him and some others on his exec board. This past year, we've had conflict come up with grievances being filed. I believe the biggest thing that we can push when conflict arises is that each individual voice of the student matters, whether they're part of the media, whether they're part of ASG, or whether they're just a student that goes to class. These students deserve to have their voices heard, and I have the full trust in the Student Supreme Court to deal with those issues. From a president and vice president standpoint, I think it's important to have open and honest conversations with different organizations, clubs, and students on campus. By opening that conversation and opening that door, it helps mediate conflict before it even arises. I believe when conflict does arise, you have to just tackle it head on. When conflict arises and you tackle it head on and sit down in a room to have a respectful and meaningful conversation, I believe you mitigate a lot of the fallout that could possibly happen.
Mr. Harwell, you have 3 minutes to answer the question, when conflict arises, how do you and your running mate resolve it, as well as respond to any points Mr. Vela raised.
Cool. So I think conflict resolution starts with interpersonal skills, and so as HR majors, we both, the world of HR is all about conflict resolution and solving problems. So we really work with people and providing them support and ultimately creating success. Also, I think our experience in professional settings will help with that. So we work in student services, we attend lunches and dinners with Dr. Bridges' Ethical Leadership Club and the Business Honors Program. So just being able to communicate effectively, I think that's where it begins. Second comes our problem-solving skills. We both work in student services as well in John Marshall's office. And every day is a conflict in that office. There's something coming about. And it's really taught us to handle stressful situations in a timely manner. And third, I think having the
extensive experience on campus that Nicole and I have. It allows us to see people and organizations from, I guess, a holistic perspective, and that ultimately helps us solve problems because of our adaptability and our ability to learn quickly.
Mr. Vela, you have 1 minute to respond to any points Mr. Harwell raised.
Yeah, I think whenever it comes to conflict, it definitely has to deal with miscommunication. As an RA on campus, I see conflict on a weekly basis, and it's how do you mitigate these situations to the best of your ability. My running partner, Mr. Flores, does work in President Foster's office as a student worker, and he sees conflict every week as well within the office and within different students. I believe what mine and Mr. Flores' strengths are is that we work really well together and balance ideas really well off each other. Where he is an off-campus student, I'm an on-campus student. Where he's a little bit older, I'm a little bit younger. Me and him bring a lot of different aspects into this campaign that will help mitigate conflict before it rises. And when it does arise, we're willing to tackle it head on and come to a compromise and a common agreement with the individuals where the conflict does arise from.
We will move on to the third question for our vice presidential candidates. Mr. Harwell, what do you identify as the strengths and weaknesses with how ASG currently operates?
I would say one strength right now is just their ability to, I guess what I was saying, celebrate each other and show the students that they're important. I've been to the ASG meetings for the past few weeks now, and I know they do a great job. I see Bo Flores as trustee talking to them individually after and letting them know that, you know, they're important and this is really why we do things like this. One weakness, I think, and this is what Mr. Vela mentioned as well, but just accountability with things like office hours and I guess a mutual understanding of what responsibilities should be held. And ultimately, I think that comes down to communication as well, just setting standards and making sure that that's known through everyone and understood. And with that, I think it should be able to take care of itself.
Mr. Vela, you have 3 minutes to answer the question. What do you identify as the strengths and weaknesses with how ASG currently operates, as well as respond to any points Mr. Harwell raised?
I believe the main strength within ASG is that we have a lot of passionate and dedicated senators to ASG. And we have a very passionate and dedicated executive team. And that brings a lot to the table for the students. For example, this last year we passed a resolution unanimously for the DACA students after Trump repealed that mandate for DACA, putting a lot of students who live on this campus futures uncertain. I was one of the authors and sponsoring senators on that bill, and I believe anything that I do, it's for the students. Another strength that I would see ASG has is we really come together on many different things. Our external committee is doing really, really great things, and our internal committee is really working on refining our current documents. And we have passed a constitution through the ASG body, which the students will vote on. And I urge all you students out there to please vote yes on this constitution, because a lot of hard work and late nights have gone into this constitution. I would see the main weakness within ASG currently, and it's a problem we've had in the past years, is just in the realm of transparency. Currently, we're making strides to improve transparency, as in the website on the CMU website, but we do run into issues with that because we have to get it approved for administration. I want to work on a way to figure out how we can have our own website and further transparency in that aspect so the students know exactly where their money is going and being spent on when different clubs come and they're allocated that way. I believe the social media presence can be kicked up as well in ASG. That just all falls on the transparency aspect. There's been several things and several changes to the bylaws and constitution, and if these all pass through, I believe that the future of ASG is set up in really good hands. Another strength that I see with our current administration is just their willingness to prepare any other administration that's about to take over with President Lindsay and Vice President Gao leaving in the near future.
Mr. Harwell, you have 1 minute to respond to any points Mr. Vela raised.
I just want to touch again on the strength of ASG and what President Lindsay and Vice President Gao have created and the involvement and engagement of ASG and the number of senators. We see that in the voting process right now. I think this is the most people we've had submit intent forms in ASG history. And so I just wanted to touch on that again. I think that's definitely a strength that ASG has right now.
Gentlemen, I will ask you the final question for the office of Student Body Vice President, and we will begin with you, Mr. Vela. What is your opinion of the proposed ASG bylaw changes and the constitutional changes students will be voting on this week?
Absolutely. Our internal committee has been working really hard on this, and I've actually been a part of a lot of these changes. I've offered a change in the FAC bylaws last semester that allows senators to sponsor a failed bill and FAC to go to ASG. And if it's passed in ASG, we'll go to conference committee in the following days. And I believe that gives the senators a lot of power to really represent their clubs. As far as the constitutional changes, at first when they happened, as a senator on the floor, I was a little weary of them. I wanted it to be done right. I wanted them to be done right so the future bodies of ASG don't have to go back through and redo them like we have. Our Constitution largely is being changed to overall document of this is ASG and these are the roles of ASG and the definitions. The bylaws is shifting more towards an operational document that can be changed in 3 readings. Again, like I said earlier, I urge all the students to vote yes on the constitutional changes because it will create a lot more efficient student body to represent you. I just want to touch on some other legislative pieces that I've been proposing throughout these changes. Budget resolutions, I hope will get passed this upcoming Wednesday. I will propose that on the floor, and it's just to keep the Senate body more accountable of how much money we're spending in our controlled budgets.
Mr. Harwell, you have 3 minutes to answer the question. What is your opinion of the proposed ASG bylaw changes and the constitutional changes students will be voting on this week, as well as respond to any points Mr. Vella raised?
I agree with Mr. Vella. I urge all students to vote on it. Like I said, I've been attending the ASG meetings for the past few weeks. I see the hard work that's been going into it. Ultimately, my opinion is that I applaud ASG for making these necessary changes. It is the changing of wording and things like that, those little things that need to be done to create accountability is what has been done ultimately in this past semester. And ultimately, I support all the changes, and like Mr. Vella said, I urge all students to vote yes on the changes.
Mr. Vella, you have 1 minute to respond to any points Mr. Harwell raised.
Yeah, absolutely. I think largely the role of the vice president too. With these changes, they will be the chair of the internal committee. And with me, I have the knowledge and the background of why these changes occurred and why it's good for our body. And I believe I can use that with tackling smaller issues within the documents of finding things that may or may not work. And I believe in this experience really matters so we can help push and advocate for the students. With these changes, if they're all passed, I believe will free up the executives in the Senate to be able to advocate more freely for the students and be able to really be there for the students and stand up for the individual voice of the students, which me and Mr. Flores hope to do within the coming year.
I'd like to thank our candidates for the office of Student Body Vice President. We'll be taking another commercial break. Stay tuned. The presidential debates are up next.
Of the registration, financial aid, advising runaround? Iris is here to save you. That's right, I'm Iris. Management knows me as Integrated Resources for Information and Solutions. Get it? But you can just call me Iris. I'm kind of a big deal. I've taken registration, financial aid, student accounts, and advising and rolled them into one, a convenient place to get all your student business done. I know. You think that's impossible. But no, I didn't. Let me tell you how. First, I cross-trained a group of some of the best people from registration, financial aid, advising, and student accounts. Believe me, they know a lot about everything and can take care of most of your student needs. But if they get stuck, they can always call in an expert. After we trained our frontline irises, we thought they needed a remodeled home. Just take a look at the new first floor of Lowhiney Hall. There's a great big iris desk. You can't miss it with all the bright banners and new graphics. That's where you go for everything. A lot of what you need to do can be done online, so there are new workstations with Iris staff ready to help. It's just that simple, and such an improvement. So when your friends want to know where to pick up their financial aid, how to register for a class, what's required in their major, tell them to go Ask Iris.
What happens to a pop culture narrative pushed past the fall of civilization? Experience the dark comedy brilliance of Mr. Burns, a post-electric play, at CMU Theater April 6th through the 14th.
Bravo Pizza is more than just pizza. We offer gyros, garlic knots, calzones, Mediterranean plates, Philly cheesesteaks, wings, salad, and more. Bravo Pizza, a real New York slice of taste bud heaven.
The office of Student Body President is one beyond speaking at graduation. The president connects with the university administration, but more importantly, the student body they serve. They guide the student senate and executive branch in allocating funds and improving the quality of experience for all Mavericks. Please welcome your candidates for the office of Student Body President, Bo Flores and Nicole Troster. Turnout in recent ASG elections has been declining in recent years. Beginning with you, Mr. Flores, if you are elected, how will you improve ASG's visibility and connection with the student body?
Good question. So I think as a first step, I think how we can connect with students more than just the election, I feel like, is kind of have that, what Senator Vela said was that transparency. Having what we do be a little more open to what the students do, because what we ultimately do is for students. And I feel like coming from, when I first arrived at CMU, I wasn't a part of ASG, I wasn't a part of much here, but when I was here, I didn't even know that there was a student government, to be honest. But now seeing what they do last year and a couple years ago, I just kind of fell in love, and I kind of want them to realize what we do. So in terms of that, especially with the upcoming biennial year, I kind of want to work with the criterion to have that transparency, that this is what we're doing, this is how it's happening, and this is for you guys. And if you want to respond, respond. So I feel like in terms of a better election, I think by making this first step, it would eventually add up to a bigger turnout for elections.
Ms. Troster, you have 4 minutes to answer the question, if you are elected, how will you improve ASG's visibility and connection with the student body, as well as respond to any points Mr. Flores raised?
Perfect, thank you. So I completely agree with Mr. Flores. The amount of transparency that could happen through ASG has the potential to do really great things for students. One of our main ideas for our campaign, Donovan and I, is empowerment. And that goes so much farther than just empowering our team as senators. We would empower students to feel welcomed and empowered to join those organizations and get out and be more involved in organizations like ASG or Greek Life or different parts of campus that make your campus experience fulfilling and help define you as a person and as a student. One of our main aspects of empowerment is transparency and making sure that students understand what's going on campus. So Donovan and I are doing a chain link survey through our campaigning event, and it's brought to light that students don't exactly know what resources the university already provides. It's really important that we bring those to light. Everyone has really great recommendations, but it's already happening on campus. So one of our main goals is to make that known through social media, through various media aspects of CMU. The most important element of this, and I've been saying this a lot through the campaign, is everyone wants students to get involved. And that's great, but someone has to make that first step. And I believe that first step is through ASG. Donovan has been meeting with different senators and clubs in order to make that connection and understand where it can come from. And both of us are very relationship oriented in that we want to encourage and empower and make students feel comfortable that they can make that first step and get involved.
Mr. Flores, you have 1 minute to respond to any points Ms. Troster raised.
Okay, I agree with Nicole. She brought up what the school already has, and that's the resources that students can use. And it's currently a topic I've met with John Marshall along with Vice President Gallo and President Lindsay. We kind of to see what we can do to better aware the students in terms of that. And it's currently a process, but I know that incoming freshmen is probably our biggest avenue, I think, because they are the most influential and they also are more open to what the university has. So I think as a as a first step is trying to more awareness in certain things to better that. And I think a great idea would to have a ASG website or an ASG page and have basically like a, like the library has you can talk to a librarian, kind of have like that. Just you can ask questions for ASG or anything kind of like that, and we can kind of see and we can respond. So I think that'll make it better. Thank you.
For the second question, I will begin with you, Ms. Troster. What will you prioritize during the allocation of student fees during your term? Ensuring keeping costs low or providing all requests for students and student organizations?
Perfect. So my role as president would be to make sure that those allocations are fair and equal and for the best outcome for the student body. My background in the business department and through my personal experience, I was previously the treasurer of Alpha Sigma Alpha, and I made the budget and allocated the dues that girls spent towards our fees with the sorority. And that's like a minor scale of what this would be with the university. Both Donovan and I have extensive experience with different ethics initiatives, especially the Daniels Fund, but we would really focus on emphasizing fairness, respect, transparency, all of those different values when we're allocating funds, making sure that each allocation has the most powerful impact for that organization.
Mr. Flores, you have 4 minutes to answer the question. What will you prioritize during the allocation of student fees during your term, ensuring keeping costs low or providing all requests for students and student organizations, as well as respond to any points Ms. Troster raised?
I think if I get president, I think what I would like to stress is so the Senate does have, they do have the majority, all the vote to see what happens when things are allocated. But I kind of want to stress that, one, we are definitely for students, but we do have to be fiscally smart. And we saw that this year with the SCRIF budget kind of running low and kind of going into reserves. So in terms of what I would want as a Senate, or what I would hope that the Senate would kind of do is just kind of be for the students, but just be fiscally smart. Understand that the biennial is coming and that every org is going to have a budget, and understand that this budget will be the same for 2 years. So and that being said, we have to fully understand and grasp what it really means by approving or disapproving what other clubs get. So in terms of what I wish, let's just be for students, but let's understand that we all have a budget. So, thank you.
Ms. Troster, you have 1 minute to respond to any points Mr. Flores raised.
Perfect. So, Mr. Flores brought up really good points that we want to be fiscally responsible. The senators are the ones in charge of allocating, and both Donovan and I would oversee and make sure that things are fair and equal. Along that process of the biennial budget, we would utilize our mentors throughout the community and the university, different professors, administrators, faculty that have input that would be really valuable. In addition, utilizing our team of our ASG team, as well as our other team members of the student body that would be affected by the budgeting process. And finally, listening to the voice of the students. Like we said, everything we do is for the students, but we want to make sure that what we're doing has the most powerful impact and makes the most financial sense in the long term.
For the third question, I will begin with you, Mr. Flores. Given your conversations with students during the campaign, what stands out as a notable opinion of the student body, and how will that affect your leadership?
I think that can be drawn back to the first question. Is kind of like they don't really know ASG. They kind of don't even know what we do, or they kind of don't understand what we can do, and that was the bulk of our conversation. So as a trustee, I met with a lot of students and a lot of orgs and clubs just off the record, not for the campaign or anything, but just to kind of understand where our clubs are at and what our students understand. And the bulk of our conversation was, hey, what is ASG? What does it do? And it's something that, as I said before, is I kind of want to change. I kind of want to show that it's not just an org that allocates money. It's not just, oh, you have to ask for money and they give it. No, it's not. And I think it's a lot more than that. And I want to stress that we're more, what I want to hope is that they understand that we are leaders. we are not just people who allocate money, and that if they want more than just money, they can come to us for any kind of help. They can come to us for if they need help in the administration department, if they need help with schooling, that we have leaders who are willing to do that. And that is ultimately it's kind of funny really how they kind of just brought up what is ASG, but that's what the biggest, I think, confusion that most students had prior to this campaign.
Ms. Troster, you have 4 minutes to answer the question, what stands out as a notable opinion of the student body and how will that affect your leadership, as well as respond to any points Mr. Flores raised.
So throughout our campaign, like I said, we've been doing the chain link survey, and like Donovan touched on in his debate, we have learned so much from what the students care about. And what we do as members of ASG isn't going to matter unless the students support us. So listening to them is incredibly important. And we found some really interesting things. The students most consistently said that they love the people on campus, how warm and welcoming and polite everyone is, and the campus itself, the area, how beautiful everything is, and the opportunities that Grand Junction provides. Those are things that we really want to celebrate and recognize and show that CMU has that reputation for the future. Some of the negatives that were brought up that are very, what's the word, like prevalent in most students' minds were safety, mental health, sexual harassment, and understanding what organizations and opportunities there are on campus. Additionally, having more events for fun events like concerts and fairs and opportunities like that. One thing we've noticed primarily is that these resources are already set into place. Most of them are already happening, just students don't know about them. But with that, you can obviously improve transparency, but we could also improve the level or extent to which we're doing. Everything has the opportunity to grow and improve, and that's something that we have the resources to do. Both Donovan and I work for Vice President John Marshall in the Student Services Office, and in that office we have Director of Campus Safety and Campus Health. So we've worked with those administrators and faculty that really help us with this knowledge base to accomplish what the students want to see from CMU. We work really closely with Grand Junction PD and the campus resource officers, as well as different mental health initiatives and fun events on campus, like stuff that Greek Life provides, stuff that PAC does, other opportunities that RHC and other clubs and organizations provide for campus. So I think there are lots of great outlets and opportunities that there's a bright future for.
Mr. Flores, you have 1 minute to respond to any points that Ms. Troster raised.
I don't want to say anything she said. We kind of have this very similar goals in the betterment of CMU, so.
Both candidates are prominent figures on this campus, so I will ask you, Ms. Troster, if you are elected, will the office of president, besides academics, be your priority next year? And if you have other responsibilities, how do you plan to balance them?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for that. So I currently serve as the president of Alpha Sigma Alpha, the secretary of the Student Center for the Public Trust. I'm a committee member for the Junior College World Series, and I work lots of jobs. So I'm very involved in try to balance my plate. But I love the idea of this new challenge. And if I were to win president, this would be my priority. And it would really feed into the other positions that I have on campus. Obviously, I would step down from those loads. As far as president of the sorority, my term would be over in the fall. So it'll all align really well as far as balancing out my plate. And I'm really excited for using those experiences and connections that I've had my whole life and in my university experience to translate that to my presidency.
Mr. Flores, you have 4 minutes to answer the question. If you are elected, will the office of president, besides your academics, be your priority next year? And if you have any other responsibilities, how do you plan to balance them, as well as respond to any points that Ms. Troster raised?
So before deciding to run for president, that was a huge thing for me. I had to decide, like, do I really want it? So currently, I am the student trustee. I am also the captain on the track and field team. I also work for the president. I work in student life, and I'm also president of the Ho'olaka'i Polynesian Alliance. We just had our luau. But next year, sad to say, I'm gonna have none of those things. So I actually end track next month, and I'm not gonna be president of the Polynesian Club. I'm not gonna be trustee, and I'm not going to work in President Foster's office. So I'm really, this is opening up my schedule, if anything. I'm not going to have, I think, no, I'll just have this presidency, I think, next year. So I think balancing academics and balancing ASG is something that I've been doing with a lot more things this year. So I think next year, it'll be a little more smoother. So we'll see.
Ms. Troster, you have 1 minute to respond to any points Mr. Flores raised.
I think we're both incredibly passionate about this position, and we both bring a lot to the table. And as far as balancing out our plates and that element, it's important to realize that president and vice president isn't the entire gig. We have an entire team surrounding us and mentors that help levy out the weight load and will make us a successful team. So really focusing on that team mentality, I think, is an incredibly important element of that leadership that we would inherit as president and vice president.
For the final question of the night, Mr. Flores, you will begin. What 3 substantial goals do you hope to accomplish as student body president, and how do you plan to meet them?
So the 3 goals that I'm looking forward to as the next year is, one, just kind of, as I said before, work on transparency. Understand that the biennial is coming up, and that's something that a lot of students, if not most, don't understand what that is. And what it is basically, in a nutshell, ASG approves or disapproves budgets for almost all orgs on campus. And it's something that goes through FAC, and it happens to have an appeal process, and then it goes through ASG. And it's something that a lot of students don't understand. So my goal would be transparency, opening that up, show them what their student fees are going to, and understand that they can easily say something. It's not just something like, oh, we have to kind of abide by it. No, like, you can easily say something. It's something that we're open to. The next thing would be kind of like make ASG and the student body more comfortable with each other. As I said before, I didn't even know that there was an ASG when I first came here. But just kind of build that understanding. I guess it kind of goes into my 3rd goal, but it's kind of making that if the Constitution passes, we're going to have the Senate represent kind of like each department. And I feel like that tackles a bigger, vast amount of students by, if not all, but if by saying that a senator represents the English department, that a student can easily go to the senator and that person can have answers. If not, it can be a direct line to the department head, which is what a lot of schools don't have. So I kind of want to build that, to have every student, we're all here for education, we're all here to get that degree. So if we build an ASG around students and not just orgs and clubs, I feel like it would be easier to obtain for students. And so by doing that, ASG will be a lot more transparent, like I said, and we can definitely grow to something a lot bigger than what it is.
Ms. Troster, you have 4 minutes to answer the question, what 3 substantial goals do you hope to accomplish as student body president, and how do you plan to meet them, as well as respond to any points that Mr. Flores raised?
Thank you. So like we've touched on a lot, both Donovan and I, our goals for ASG is threefold. So listen, empower, and connect. We've touched on listening and empowering a lot during this portion of the debate. Listening, just getting a visual of what the students want to see from their college experience. Empowering is twofold. So empowering our Senate team, our ASG team, as well as empowering the students to feel welcomed and more comfortable with ASG and with the organizations and opportunities that they have on campus. And finally, connections. This was such a big thing for Donovan and I because we were kind of thinking back to why we like CMU so much. And the root of why every student comes to a university is to make connections, whether that's with knowledge, with a passion, with a career or a mentor or your future bridesmaid, your future spouse, your best friend. Those are elements that are really important to you as a person because these are some very developmental times in our lives. We were talking a lot about career development, and it's not so much a focus on how you performed academically as it is a focus on what you did in school. It's what you did while you were here and how you made this experience valuable, and how you got involved and how you defined yourself as a person on campus and making those connections along the way. And that's something that we really want to provide that opportunity to students, like we've had that opportunity on our experience here at CMU. Most importantly, our goals are to make a positive influence through transparency and communication. And I think the threefold plan, listening, empowering, and connecting, can be done through that.
Mr. Flores, you have 1 minute to respond to any points Ms. Troster raised.
Her and Donovan actually have a pretty good motto. I forgot what it was, but it flowed pretty well. But I think as students, we definitely are here for education and the schooling. So what Jeff and I really want to stress is that we're here for that, and that if you need any help, it doesn't necessarily have to be a counselor. That's the beauty of it. I feel like students can connect with students better than they do with adults. Counselors and we are adults. Sorry, guys, but but I feel like if we just grow that, it will be something bigger. So, thank you.
With that, we conclude our ASG debates aired live on CMU TV. I'd like to thank our candidates. Encourage all students to vote on OrgSync in person this week, April 11th through the 13th. I'd also like to remind you that MAV Award nominations are open until Friday, so please nominate there. There will be a small event in the Point where winners will be announced on Friday from 4 until 6. Good night.